Which is forbidden, exactly. And this started with the National Front Party, so Marine Le Pen's party. But then when they got under investigation, they actually denounced other parties, such as Jean Luc Mélenchon's party and also the Modem party, the center party here in France.
Mélenchon was attacking, at least verbally, the prosecutor, who was, of course, during the raid, but also police officers. A lot of people have been, shocked by his attitude. The Prime Minister, Edouard Philippe, he said that these police officers were just doing their job. But Mélenchon, he said he had no regrets. He had a short speech in the parliament this week. And of course, he was applauded not only by his own party, but also by the former Front National, Marine Le Pen, who are in the same situation because their offices were also raided earlier this year. And Mélenchon says it's a political plot against me, but the offices of La République En Marche, they were raided this summer as well, following the Benalla affair. So basically the police is just treating everybody equally. They're raiding all the political parties.
He has also said that he has he's a Mediterranean genes, which sort of explains his very dramatic acting during these raids.
He blames it on his genes, but he also says that he's fighting racism. So this is the story of the very explosive Jean Luc Mélenchon this week.
Vous écoutez So French.
You are listening to So French.
The population in the big cities like Paris and Lyon, Marseille, they're all suffering from pollution. Many things have been tried to fight pollution, but one thing always was a taboo in France, and that is charging cars who are entering the city. Now, this may change.
Yes. Well, it's a new suggestion at least. Well, it was always allowed for cities to have trial periods, but it could only last for about 3 years, I think, which is a bit short to make a proper estimation of the impact of it. But a new proposition then would allow cities to start using these congestion taxes or car tolls or whatever you want to call them. Something that already exists in several European cities like Milan, Stockholm, London. What do you think, Stefan? Is this something that is likely to work in France?
Well, it could work, although the problem, of course, in Paris is that all the jobs are in Paris and a lot of people live in the suburbs. So critics say that it will punish people living in the suburbs because they are the one who will have to pay. But they are also the ones who pollute, of course. In London, it's the congestion charge already existing for about almost 20 years. You pay about £11.50. What happens there is that traffic did decrease a little bit, but now with the economic growth the last couple of years, it just has increased again. So it's not really working. It's too cheap. But it may work. Especially in Paris, there are a lot of alternatives. Very good public transportation. If you live close in close suburbs, you can take the bicycle.
Well, and the thing is, this kind of measure also has to come with other measures, of course.
Yeah.
We have to have parkings outside of the city. So for people who come from very far can actually leave their cars outside of the city center, which is very important. And that is one of the major issues today because they don't really exist, or they only exist, for example, if you are parking, if you go every day. But if you go twice a week or something, it's more difficult to have a parking contract in those big parkings. So that is, of course, something that has to come with it. Stockholm has this kind of tolls or taxes since I would say more than 10 years at least.
And does it work?
Well, it has worked in the sense that it stopped the increase of traffic. It's still, it grows a little bit, but they say that this increase actually goes with the increase of the number of inhabitants.
Yeah.
But the major explosion of traffic has been stopped. But one of the major issues of these systems is the cost. Because I know that in Sweden, for example, in Stockholm, the cost for the setting up all these toll stations and everything, it got 4 times more expensive than it was planned to be in the beginning. So actually, you put in place something where you say that, well, the money that we get from this will go into investment of other things or infrastructure, etc. But actually, it ends up being a very, very, very expensive thing.
But did the air become cleaner, or is it hard to define?
I think it's hard to measure because it also comes at the same time as other things, other main routes have been opened around Stockholm, which some say then actually boosts traffic even more because it's even easier to come to Stockholm and around. So I mean, if you build more roads and better roads, you actually get more traffic as well. So it's always very, very complicated to measure these kinds of things. They say in some parts there is less traffic jams, other parts there are more traffic jams today. But one thing I think you can say for sure, as living in Paris, something has to be done.
Absolutely.
Is this kind of tolls the solution? I don't think so. I think it could be a part of a big package of many solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. But at least, the city of Paris has been asking for this for a very long time. So it's very likely that we will see a congestion charge in Paris as well. They're now talking about €5 a day. So that's not a lot of money. But it's a beginning. And like you said, it's just a small part of what should become a bigger package to fight pollution in the big cities. Four weeks ago, we spoke here at So French about murdering millionaires in Monaco. And that was the story of the 77-year-old Hélène Pastor, Monaco's richest woman. She was killed in 2014 in a mafia-style hit. A couple of suspects were arrested, and after a court case that lasted almost the entire month, the French judges reached a verdict this week. Well, Sarah, I know you're really fascinated by the story.
I am now able to, take a breath and, leave. It's been 5 weeks of very intense media coverage of this trial. Yes, but up until the very end, this case actually was turned on its head several times. As we spoke about this case a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the fact that the main suspect in this case is then Hélène Pastor's son-in-law, Wojciech Jawinowski. He had, during interrogation in 2014, actually admitted to the crime, but he then withdrew his testimony and was denying having any implication in this murder up until the very end. And I said the very end because what happened during the last day of this, or the day before the last day of this trial, is that he completely changed his story and had his lawyer, a very famous French lawyer, I must say, read out his confession of having, ordered this killing by using his personal trainer as a middle hand, and then, several hitmen then to actually commit the murder. A tearful confession. Well, he was crying, the lawyer was speaking, everybody was taken aback.
Very dramatic.
Very, very dramatic. But I think at the end of the day, a very big relief for everyone involved, because he was convicted to life in prison.
And why did he kill the Hélène Pastor?
This is all a question of money. Well, he was trying to say that he did it only for because the mother-in-law was terrorizing his poor wife, but. As the prosecutors pretty well managed to prove, I think, during this trial, is that it was all about the money. He had some pretty bad business deals behind him, and he also knew that since he wasn't married to his partner, who was then the daughter of Hélène Pastor, if she would pass away for some reason, and she was ill, she had a cancer. He would lose everything. He would lose the monthly payouts that his mother-in-law gave them. So he was trying to sort of change destiny, I guess, in one way. But so he was, as I said, convicted to life in prison, and several of his accomplices were convicted to decades in prison as well.
And it was not only Hélène Pastor who was killed, but also her driver.
Yes.
Right.
So
this is the fascinating story, and this is the end. Life imprisonment.
We think this is the end. Yes, years of investigation and waiting for this trial that maybe finally can be left behind.
Now let's finish with some culture and some sport, and the two of them. Kylian Mbappé, he was in the news this week in a positive way. Well, he's always in the news in a positive way.
Well, until now, he's always been in the news for a positive way. I mean, he's France's French football's poster boy, and I think France's, big new positive hero, I would say.
Absolutely, yeah. Kylian Mbappé, he's on the cover of Time magazine this week as a next generation leader. Beautiful photo, black and white photo. But he also went back to his suburb, Bondy, where he comes from.
Where he comes from. And, this is for anyone who knows Paris, Bondy is not one of the glamorous Parisian suburbs. Quite the opposite. It's a very socially, a lot of social problems, very, very poor neighborhood and a poor suburb to Paris. He grew up there. He started playing football there not too long ago because he's so extremely young.
He's only 19. Yeah.
So he wasn't
world champion.
So this week he actually went back to meet with the kids for whom he is now, of course, the biggest star on earth.
Yeah. Well, not only to him, I think for a lot of French, and even my son of 4 years old, he knows Kylian Mbappé. This is the only football player he knows.
The biggest event in the town's history, said Bondy's mayor as Kylian Mbappé was meeting with his fans.
Yeah, and he's also he's not only a great football player, but he's also a great personality, because there were some interviews with him before the the World Cup this summer, and he comes across as somebody who's very calm, he knows what he's doing, very humble. And in the interview with the Time magazine, he said, "My life has been totally turned upside down, but I'm happy and I'm living the life I've always dreamed of." And it's true, he's such a...
Very humble.
Only 19 years old, and this is already football's biggest star, I think, Kylian Mbappé. Well, that wraps up this edition of So French. We hope you have enjoyed it. Please follow us on Twitter @SoFrenchNews, and you can listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and from this week on, even on YouTube.
This list just gets longer and longer.
Yeah.
And don't forget to rate us on iTunes, and please leave a review. That way more people will find us. And if you happen to be in Paris, you can also listen to us on air on World Radio Paris on Saturday at 5:30 p.m. and on Thursday at 5 p.m.
And if you like French music, check out our free playlist on Spotify, which we update regularly. Just search for So French Music or click the link on our website.
We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode of So French.
We hope you'll join us then. Thanks for listening.
Au revoir.